If you haven't already, hit that like button and subscribe and turn on post notifications so you don't miss any of our future videos.
Aloha, our keto friends. We are very excited to be here, and we thought, you know what, we're going to sit down and talk to you about the top 10 keto mistakes or the top 10 keto tips, whatever way you want to see that. But we, on Sundays, we are teaching our keto coaching certification program to our keto coaches, and some of the things that came up yesterday, we really wanted to bring to light to all of you to help you out, right? Nancy, one of our keto coaches, was saying, one of my clients wants to have a cheat day in order for this to seem sustainable. And I said, it's kind of like telling an alcoholic you could have vodka on Fridays, don't you think?
Yeah, one of the things that it seems normal in the food space to push food and to push,
it's normalcy.
If you cut out
gluten,
alcohol,
yeah.
Well, if you cut out alcohol,
right.
Nobody's gonna at a party say, "Oh, just have one drink. It's not gonna hurt
No.
you." But if you cut out sugar, it's like everybody's pushing the muffins. Oh, one muffin's not gonna hurt you. So,
and it's like
it's
most of us are sugar addicts. I mean, yeah. I was.
Well, I just watched a presentation showing how
the
brain actually gets more influenced by obesity and processed food addiction than it does
cocaine.
From cocaine.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, it is an addiction.
So what do you do instead of a cheat day? I wrote about this in my first book called Keto Adapted. I wrote about overfeeding days, and I still practice this to this day. So I do protein sparing days, which we'll talk about later. But overfeeding days, it was kind of like my cheat. It wasn't a full-blown cheat where I had Pizza Hut, but I would allow myself to have things like a keto pizza or more food than I typically ate in a day. It was kind of like a way to just trick your thyroid. I usually did it on Sundays when we were, having a lot of family around, maybe not with COVID, but we'd have big family dinners. And I suggest an overfeeding day to trick the thyroid rather than a cheat day. So that's number one.
But what is an overfeeding day?
Okay.
It's not extra carbs or
carb
up or anything
No,
like
it's
that.
not a carb up.
It's extra protein and fat.
Yes.
So basically just following keto, just eat a little more of the keto foods on that day.
Right. Like a big old piece of my flourless chocolate torte or something.
Yes.
Right? So that's number one. Number two, when someone comes to us, to our private keto Facebook group, they always say, I'm stalled. What am I doing wrong? And the first thing Craig says is, what are your macros? What are your macros?
Because there's so much bad keto advice. In the past 2 or 3 years, keto's gotten really popular. And with that have come a lot of new people into this space who are pushing a lot of bad ideas.
Like fat bombs.
Bulletproof coffee, we'll talk later, chasing a percentage, instead of focusing on grams and macros and getting those right. If you think about the body and how the body works, you need to get enough protein to maintain lean mass. And to be keto, you'd want to keep carbs very low. So the only thing that's left to adjust is fat. And you got to adjust the fat based on the goal.
This is why whenever I consult a client, my first question is, what is your why? What are your goals? Because if it's weight loss, which 99% of people that I work with is, then we're going to turn the fat dial down. However, if I'm working with someone with epilepsy, seizures, multiple fertility, we turn the fat dial way up, which it's a totally different protocol. But it depends on
what. The vast majority of people, and if they come to us saying their weight loss is stalled, dial the fat down a bit.
So what we did is we hired a developer, and we have a free macro calculator at mariamindbodyhealth.com. Just search for Keto Calculator on our blog, and it gives you macros. If you are a platinum or gold member at keto-adapted.com, we do the macros for you. And we also give you protein-sparing modified fast macros. And so when someone asks that question, I'm not losing weight, help, Craig says, what are your macros? And my third tip is, are you dairy and nut free? Dairy and nuts are the two things that commonly hold people back from weight loss. Partly because it's not fitting in their macros. Because if you think about dairy and nuts, they're carbohydrates and fat.
Very energy dense.
Very energy dense. And that's why I wrote I have 5 books that are dairy free and nut free, including, this one's $13 on Amazon, people. And it's filled with recipes and tips for weight loss.
All
this one has
dairy-free.
This one has over 200 recipes in it, but they're all dairy and nut free because that's the most common thing that holds people back.
Not only is it inflammatory,
it's inflammatory,
but there's been studies on this that show satiety signaling with certain foods. What foods are the easiest to overeat? Dairy and nuts are right at the top.
When I put a handful of nuts in my hand, that's 250 calories versus a 500 calorie of my nuts in my hand. They look the same.
It looks like there's maybe one or two more nuts in
You
this
can't
hand,
really
but
tell. And
that's how easy.
we're not saying that calories are everything, but to say that calories are pointless, that's ignorance.
Yeah.
Okay, so they do add up. Dairy and nuts are constipating, and
And they just don't trigger satiety like other things like protein.
And the crunch in the nuts that sensors something called sensory specific satiety. And that is that sensation of crunch in your ear causes this addictive overeating. You want more and more. And this is what happens with chips, with nuts, all of that. And we're all succumb to it. I mean, and so when I say nut free, I mean almond flour, coconut flour, nuts, pecans, especially pistachio and peanuts. Peanuts are a legume. Cashews. Pistachios and cashews are very high in carbohydrates, and you can not subtract fiber. That should be our next one. Our next mistake or keto tip is do not subtract fiber.
Yes.
Don't subtract fiber from the total carbohydrates because fiber does matter. I work with type 1 diabetics all the time, and they're like, how come when I eat that psyllium bread that you invented years ago, I have issues?
Yeah.
And I'm like, that's because you can't subtract fiber.
And this is a little bit related to a later one about keto products. A lot of keto products now, again, it's gotten popular, so you have all these keto products. They do net carbs, which is an issue, but they hide ingredients
Like
in fiber, like inulins or soluble corn fiber, that spike blood sugar.
That's
and
with
yet
all
they
of
can
us.
hide it in fiber.
Oh man.
So that's the big
There's
problem
like
with
this Smart
net
Sweets
carbs.
gummy bears. And then that's as worse as the regular gummy bears, if you ask me. And that could be our next tip. So what are we on? Number 4, keto products.
Yes.
If it has a package, stay away.
If it's a packaged food with keto on it, majority of the time, it's just processed junk and you don't want it. Stick with whole foods.
Stick with whole foods that really don't have a label.
Yeah.
But I guess my steak even has a label now, so.
Yeah.
It is. So
But-
that's, we call that dirty keto.
Yeah, the keto products, the artificial sweeteners,
Oh my
the
gosh,
chemicals that
but
can be in these products
There's
are
bread.
really...
I mean, at Costco, I think they now have keto bread.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. It has
it's
vital
just
wheat
wheat.
gluten.
It's just...
The vital wheat gluten is causing the gluten allergies.
So
it's a big
even
issue.
more of the gluten
Yeah.
that people are sensitive to. So
Totally a big issue.
stay away from most of the keto products.
So that's why we're all about, try to make healthy food at home. So you know what the ingredients are. Let's see. The next one, consider adding in a protein-sparing modified fast day 1 or 2 days a week.
Yes, this is kind of, it's not a mistake, but it's something people overlook, I would say, is that a great way to break a stall or improve your results is, again, back to the fat. That fat you need to adjust based on your goal. Well, throw in a day or two where, boom, you ramp that fat way down. And that forces the body...
And the carbs way down.
Yep, and forces the body to use more of its own fat for fuel. You're just tricking your biology. It's almost a little bit like overfeeding. It's like, boom, let's ramp this down, make the body pull a bunch of fat from storage and burn it as fuel.
And protein has a thermic defective food. So when you eat 100 calories of protein, you really only net about 65 to 75 calories out of that 100. When you eat 100 calories of fat, you get 97 calories. So again, not to say that calories are everything, but to say that they're nothing and they don't influence your hormones, it's a big mistake that people make.
We just released The Art of Fat Loss.
Oh my gosh, people are loving it. They love the French toast in that book.
Amazing recipes that ramp down the carbs and fat to force your body to burn its own.
And it makes it interesting and fun and delicious, so you don't have to just chew on a big old chicken breast to do the protein sparing. I even have bourbon chicken in there. Everybody loves that recipe too. So another tip, nobody likes to hear this, Craig. Consider cutting out coffee. I worked at a coffee shop since I was 15 years old. I had the biggest coffee addiction anybody could have, but I also had PCOS, polycystic ovarian syndrome. And one of the things that causes the excess androgens in a female body that causes PCOS is caffeine. I did not want to cut caffeine. It took me over 10 years to even do it. But once I did, my blood sugars were way better. On average, caffeine increases blood sugar by 12%, which when you are, very sensitive to, you're pre-diabetic or diabetic, cutting out caffeine is really important. And that includes coffee and green tea.
And it is a drug.
It is a drug. It has a lot of mold in it.
It's the only drug that you see everyone pushing, right? Yeah. But it's kind of interesting. But what I find really interesting too is we have actually seen quite a few clients and lots of people, even caffeine free. So even decaf.
Oh yes, still.
They notice, and they change nothing else. They notice the days they have even the decaf coffee with no cream or nothing in it, no sweetener. Hunger is way higher that day.
Cravings are way higher.
It's a drug, and it messes with our hormones, and it affects satiety, and it can really
causes anxiety, people. This is 2020, the year of anxiety. Cut that caffeine out. It makes me a much more calmer person. And it's one more step to go. I just feel more free without having the coffee.
And the next one, which is, I think, huge and is way overlooked, is sleep. Lack of sleep is one of the number one drivers of hunger.
And another reason to cut the caffeine out, right?
Yeah.
99% of people that I consult have sleep issues. Or my question used to be, how's your sleep? And they would say, great. I sleep 5 hours a night. That's not great sleep. Maybe you sleep great for those 5 hours, but I need you to get 8 hours of sleep. I actually get about 9.5. I hit it hard all day long, but then I sleep really well that day. And that's helped a lot with my blood sugars. It helped me a lot. A lot of people don't know, I was twice my size at one point. So weight loss was a very difficult thing for me. But once I dialed in sleep, I added in certain supplements. I cut out the caffeine. I cut out dairy and nuts. All of this kind of came together. But sleep, people really undermine sleep. And we applaud people now for sleeping only 5 hours a night when we should be telling everybody, do you have poor moods? Do you have poor blood sugars? Do you have issues with
insatiable hunger?
Yeah, hunger. That happens to me, but all of that ties into poor sleep. If I'm at a party or a wedding, not this year, right? But if I'm out late, I'm always up early. I'm an early bird, so my sleep suffers. If that happens, my hunger is in overdrive, my cravings are in overdrive. They actually studied Army Rangers. Very cool study. They limited their sleep to only 6 hours.
Actually, cut it in half, from 8 to 4.
8 to 4, they cut it in half.
Yep.
And it wasn't over only 3 days.
No, I think it was a week. So I remember the study. I think it was a week, and their insulin resistance doubled. And the only thing they changed was they cut their sleep in half.
Yeah, they didn't change their food at all. So sleep is a big driving factor in, healing diabetes, healing mood issues. I'm going to be crabby if I don't sleep. I am, right?
Get your sleep as much as possible. Get your sleep
in. I don't know if we're on number 8 or what, but consider adding in supplements. There's some people that are very adamant about not, don't do any supplements, this or that. It was a huge part of my healing. It sped that up a lot. If you have a damaged liver, if you have metabolic issues, if you have PCOS, if you have low progesterone, if you're not sleeping, food can do so much. Food comes first, right? Supplements aren't going to cover up a bad diet.
Yeah.
But adding in certain supplements really just takes everything, your moods, your sleep, your hunger to the next level.
One way I think of it is if you've been eating for decades a nutrient deprived, processed food, standard American diet, where vitamins and minerals are very low, you might need a boost of vitamins for a while to help promote healing and reversing some of the issues you have. So something to consider. Someone
did comment, I drink smooth tea. Smooth move tea is, it damages so many intestines. I really don't recommend it.
Some bad
If you have issues with constipation, that is the easiest thing for me to fix. You can contact me for a consult. It's very, very simple for me to fix.
A lot of times, sodium alone.
Yeah, sodium alone will help with that.
Constipation.
And why is that? Let's dive into that. So when you eliminate carbohydrates, along goes a lot of water loss. And so you're like,
that,
poof.
With that water go electrolytes.
Right, but you're like, yay, I've just lost 10 pounds. Well, it was just water loss. But it's good that you're getting rid of that water retention. But with all that water loss goes electrolytes. And you need some water retention for your colon. The colon needs a lot of salt and hydration.
The colon is a master extractor of moisture from the stool. And so what happens is if you don't get enough electrolytes, the body's not retaining the water it needs. Mm-hmm. So the colon says, all right, I'm keeping all the moisture I can get out of this stool instead of passing it out. And that causes constipation.
And when you're eliminating breads and pasta and rice, and even a McDonald's milkshake has more sodium in it than their French fry does, you're eliminating. You have to be very mindful of salting your food. So I give a little tip. Set 2.5 teaspoons of salt aside by your cooking vessel just for one person. And if you're not using that on your food every day, then you need to add it to your water, or, we like Element. Our kids love it. It's like a natural Gatorade.
And to go back on the coffee, somebody mentioned about what's a nice warm drink for the morning. Bone broth, which will also give you some sodium. So good way to look at it.
And collagen, right?
Yep.
Another tip would be to get your blood levels checked. This is kind of an obvious one, but usually when I consult people, everything goes correctly. Then you don't need to go to the doctor to get these blood levels checked. But if you're still experiencing certain things, then getting your blood levels checked, your thyroid checked, and all of that. There's I have about 11 different tests that I do recommend clients get done.
And what sort of related to that is, are you taking any prescription drugs? And maybe the blood levels that you can have checked with the doctor. And we always talk with clients, if you're on a prescription drug, make sure you work with your doctor to adjust as your levels change. So if your blood levels, for thyroid improve, maybe reduce your thyroid
If you have Hashimoto's, my clients will get off medication for Hashimoto's. It happens. If they follow my directions, it happens all the time. It goes along with my food protocol, and the supplements can help them get off medication. But I do have a lot of clients that are on Ambien for sleep, and they consider those years their lost years. And that is so sad.
Many prescription drugs have a side effect of weight gain, and they can cause that. So that could be one of the problems.
And the last one we want to discuss is focusing on percentages. Percentages are so jacked. Don't do that.
So this kind of relates back to macros, and what this comes from, and this is rampant in the keto experts out there in the last few years.
You have to eat 70% fat.
80% fat, all this. And it goes back to a misunderstanding of what keto really is. Keto, from a therapeutic standpoint, from a therapeutic setting that it started in 1903 for seizure control, was a percentages kind of equation, because
it was for epilepsy.
You needed to get ketones really high to help control epilepsy. That is not weight loss. That is therapeutic setting for seizure control. But they've taken that and said, okay, everybody should be eating this way. And again, back to the way the body works, keep carbs low, get enough protein for your lean mass, and then adjust the fat based on the goals.
If you keep carbohydrates low enough, you will be in ketosis.
And here's the big fatal flaw in doing percentages. It doesn't talk about total calories at all. And so what happens is, if you eat 1,000 calories and you're getting 10% carbs, so you're getting 100 calories of carbs, which is like 25 grams of carbs. That's not bad, right, for keto. If you're eating 4,000 calories, now you're getting 100 grams of carbs with 10%.
Yikes, that's a lot.
The percentages is going to vary widely. And going back to protein being a goal, protein is a goal based on how much lean mass you have. But if you use percentages and your calories vary up or down, you're eating a big range of protein that may or may not be appropriate for your body.
Right. I had the great opportunity to speak in Russia a few years ago, and he was the best epileptic doctor for epilepsy in the entire world, probably. And so his focus for helping his patients was a high-fat diet protocol. But the thousands of people that came to see me speak, they all wanted to lose weight. Most of them wanted weight loss. They all wanted weight loss.
So it all comes back to, what's your why?
What's your why? So it depends on who you're working with, and
what your goals are.
What your goals are. So there are our, I think we had top 10
maybe
tips.
11. Yeah.
Maybe 11. But the more information, the better. And make sure to check out our YouTube video, because we do videos like this all the time. Mahalo, everyone.
Thanks.
Sharing is caring. Share this video with your friends.